Hey folks, welcome to verifiedinvesting.com. My name is Gareth Soloway, Chief Market Strategist here. Now in today's video, I want to look at crude oil. We're going to look at the daily time frame, which will give us the near-term move, and then also the weekly and the monthly, which will give us the longer projected out bigger move, and in what direction will that move be. So let's start out by looking at the chart of crude oil here. And this is the daily chart. We can see again, you've had a lot of volatility going back to June into early July, right? And then we've seen this kind of rollover down here where oil just keeps going lower. Now, the question is, are we going to go revisit these lows around 55.50 on crude oil? Let's take a look. Let's first start drawing our trend line. So one of the key things that I want to point out here is if we take a parallel trend line and we connect it through these recent highs, take a look at this. It's actually amazing. And what we can see here is if we drag this down, we can see that, again, extending this back gives us a perfect parallel. Now, why are parallels important here, folks? Parallels are important because they essentially give us major high pivots and major low pivots. Parallels in technical analysis are one of the most underrated and best ways that I've been able to find major highs and major lows. And if you've been a member of Smart Money Commodities at Verified Investing, I was able to short crude oil right up here just because of this parallel. And we wrote it all the way down here. All right. So again, this gives us major high, major high, major high. And then look at how the perfect parallel, major low and major low. Okay. So that's the first thing that we're doing here. So what we know is on the daily chart, we are stuck in a parallel. What that does is it gives us a basis to say if oil ever sells off here, we can be buyers, and that would be around $52.50. If oil pops up to 75, we can short oil. We just use the same parallel until proven otherwise. Okay, now on a shorter term basis, one of the things that I see is this is a flagpole, right? And then you have this underbelly trend line here. Now, what kind of pattern is this, guys? All right, so if you have a big drop and then this sideways consolidation, this actually is what we call in technical analysis a bear flag. Notice how recently low pivot to low pivot, price broke and it has continued lower because the bear flag told us that probabilities favored a downside move. And that's exactly, I repeat, exactly what is happening here on the charts. Now, the question is, where will oil go? Where in the near term will it go? Well, we know the probability favors further downside because we just talked about big breaking. So the question is, where will we see first support? First thing I'm seeing is right here. See this close and how you gapped up the next day? And look at how this is basically in alignment right through here. That tells me that there is a support level right there that will be your first key support on oil. That's right above or just a fraction above $60 per barrel. So first support, and again, this is something that we likely hit in the next couple days to early next week. This would be a target one of $60 or just above $60. All right, $60 a barrel. Now, if that breaks, then you start saying, okay, now we're talking about our double bottom down here. This would be your next spot at 55.50. We just talked about that earlier, how it's this low and this low. So $60 or $60, 55.50, and then eventually your downside would be $52.50. All right. So we've just given you 3 downside targets based on pure technical analysis of where price will go. Generally, when you hit this support, you should expect a bounce, maybe even a retrace to the underbelly of this level. That would not be unusual. Then you would actually short that level. All right, if it breaks here or when it breaks here, this would be your next level. You'd likely get a bounce, maybe back to the underbelly of this level before the next leg down. Ultimately, for me, I would consider buying these levels here, but just for quick bounces. Ultimately, the trend is down until you get down to this 52.50 level. Once you get there, we very clearly see in the past, right? So we very clearly see that off of this low level, you have big moves to the upside. So I would assume that we would get that same sort of thing if you come down into that level. All right. So again, just really using the chart to dissect. Now, this is the daily chart. So the bias in the near term based off daily is to the downside to at least $60, then maybe a small bounce. Now, if we go to the weekly chart, we look at the bigger pattern. All right. In the bigger pattern, We can see oil. Again, this was the '08 big pop and the big collapse. We can see again here you had the COVID collapse. This was the COVID collapse that was so incredible, where oil actually the current month actually went negative, having people take delivery. I mean, it was just absolutely astounding to see that sort of price action there. And then the big move up as Russia invaded Ukraine, and we saw that, and then the price has come back off. But the point being is, what are we seeing here? Well, if we zoom out even further and go to our monthly chart, we can see again, in general, to me, it looks like there is a trend line brewing, which would give me a longer term area of support. Notice right here, right? So here you have a specific low pivot from 1998, your 1998 low pivot. Then it connects through the low here in 2016. And then notice how you had the COVID collapse where oil went briefly negative. That's okay. That's an outlier. We call that an outlier. And then look at how right after it, you bounced up and you came back right to that level again. So what this tells me is, when you have three pivot points lining up, you have a significant point. So what I would say here is your short term is negative, and your longer term, your next 6, 12, 18 months is negative until you hit $40 a barrel. $40 a barrel would be a major buying opportunity according to everything I'm seeing on the charts. That would give me an incredible buy level to watch for. Now, just on the upside, let's just say something crazy happens and oil starts to rally up. And by the way, let's talk quickly about again, this is technical analysis, but I like to give it some color by giving it some fundamental outside stuff. We know OPEC is increasing production. OPEC Plus wants to flood the market with oil. Okay. Why? Well, because they realize that the US is producing so much that their only chance is to basically outprice, or not only outproduce, but drive price so low that it is not profitable for US producers to produce oil, or to drill and do all the things that they need to do. And so by that, then they can get a longer term stable price. It'll be lower, probably $50 a barrel, I'm guessing. But remember, in the Middle East, they're producing oil for like $10 a barrel, $5 a barrel. Here in the US, I think the break even's around $50 a barrel. So again, that would give us a basis to say they want to drive oil lower, so that they basically get the spigots in the US to shut off, and they can be the supplier to the globe at a lower price. We know Trump also wants lower price as well. Okay. Then if you take a look at the bigger picture, we also know the US labor market is showing a slowdown. So demand is also slowing. And we know global demand, due to the trade wars, at least for now, is also slowing. Those are all recipes that would dictate oil go lower in the near term. Now, we always want to look at both sides. So right now, we very clearly have a price of oil that has a near-term downside bias to $60 and a mid to long-term down to $40. Now, just on the off chance that oil breaks, where would we start to say, okay, oil has broken a major level here? And that level, again, going back to the daily chart, would be this trend line. If you ever get above this trend line, this would be a breakout. And then in the near term, you obviously would have to flip it over to the bullish side. But as long as you remain down here, the bearish bias remains, both near term as well as long term. Really important to kind of understand here, guys. Again, this is what it's all about, is using the charts to give us the moves, right? You don't want to go out of your way and say, oh, well, I really think this, or I feel this. The market doesn't care. In fact, the market will eat you for lunch. When people do that in markets, whether it's stocks, commodities, or crypto, literally the big players are they're like sharks. They're like great white sharks attacking chum. Don't be the chum in the water. Use the probability so that you can essentially be the casino. Doesn't mean we'll win every time. Casinos don't win every time, but over time they win a lot. They win well more than 50% of the time, and that is the key. And for me at least, I can get my win rate to 75% or greater. And again, that's the track record going back to 2007, since I've been trading publicly. And again, by doing that, we can make a lot of money, but by following the charts. That is the key. All right, folks, if you want real-time entries and exits on swing trades on on commodities, join Smart Money Commodities here at verifiedinvesting.com. Again, I do videos. I have my buddies doing videos on commodities. So we do educational videos with analysis on all the commodities out there, from natural gas to oil to gold to silver to platinum, palladium, you name it. It's all covered in these videos, and then uranium, I mean, all that stuff. But again, also we give out our trades, our trade signals. And again, you can see if you go to verifiedinvesting.com, go to smart money commodities, you can actually see that there is the track record, verified track record there. And again, you can see the winners and the losers. They're there. All right. On that note, guys, I wish you all the best. Thank you so much for tuning in. Hope you learned something today about oil. And as always, I'll be back soon to do another video on technical analysis. Take care.